Shohan, thanks so much for taking a minute today. Why don't you go ahead and start and introduce yourself, Rain, how you came about working for Rain, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Yeah, so my name's Shohan Rahman, VP of Sales and Partnerships at Rain. Been with the company for less than a year, but I've been in the industry since 2019. And personally came to Rain because very mission-driven company. I knew one of the co-founders from a previous employer of mine and just love truly focusing on helping individuals with their financial wellness. So came to Rain to really make an impact.
I think that's a great place to start when we talk about financial wellness, because you and I were just talking before we had the cameras rolling about the stress that HR leaders are under right now when we're looking at so many areas, but certainly financial stress is foundational for so much. And yet, on the same hand, right, there's stress, but on the other hand, people are really struggling to understand how do they make the change? How do they combat all that stress? So why don't we start from your perspective, what would you say an optimal place would be to start for an HR leader?
You think HR leaders, it's a tough job for them because they're thinking about their organization and business, but at the same time, thinking about the people and the culture and the productivity. So you kind of have to balance both ends. And I think it's hard to start if you don't know what you're looking for, right? Financial stress I've been reading is intentionally impacting people. And then there are predatory things out there that are just adding to that and compounding it. I think for HR leaders, the best place to start is actually listen to your people, right? Talk to them, do surveys. I hear a lot of leaders that don't know what's going on with their day-to-day of their employees. And I do see the leaders that are, hey, here's a survey, here's what we're hearing. People are asking for payday advances and things like that. But how many of those employees have actually gone to a payday lender? I bet HR leaders don't really know that. But if they did, they would probably consider a lot more of these financial health platforms to impact their overall employees.
Well, why do you think they don't know that? The resources are out there. So where do you think the barrier is?
The barrier is it's kind of embarrassing, right? As an employee, you don't want to go even to ask for a payday advance. Imagine that, an employee that goes to their boss. I know in the small business world, my background, I've actually done HR benefits and paychecks in the HCM world. So in the small business world, I've heard it a lot. I used to actually facilitate 401ks for small businesses so they could actually compete with those large companies. Well, employees would actually go to those owners and tell them can I get a payday advance? Can I get a cash advance? Can I get my paycheck early because I'm having these things? However, as organizations are larger and larger, enterprise companies, that employee maybe would go to their manager, but it's very rare that they're going to HR leaders, HR BPs, payroll leaders and saying, hey, can I actually have a payday advance because I'm struggling, I'm missing my rent this month, or I've just got overdraft fees, I couldn't pay my credit card bill and it's just absorbent. So they're not having those conversations. So that's the barrier there. So you have to find ways to actually engage those conversations or constantly do the research to see are those things actually impacting employees? So we're not in this world where we assume they're fine. Those, financial stress isn't impacting my employees. They get paid decent while they are struggling paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. Well, let's talk specifically about that. Rain is earned wage access.
Yep.
And the misconceptions and preconceptions ensue about it. So when you're looking at the unique problems that you solve as set against the other financial benefits, maybe we can land there a bit, because I know education's important. From a 5,000-foot view, people understand it, but I think digging underneath it, can you talk specifically about the problems that Rain specifically addresses relative to EWA?
Yeah, so earned wage access is just a plug in the full-blown financial health platform that we have. So one thing is, the reason I joined Rain was, again, as I mentioned, mission-driven, really wanted to help employees. I think there are companies out there that do earned wage access only. There are companies that do direct to consumer. Some of them could be construed as loans. But Rain has a specific model where it's we'll use earned wage access to plug the holes for those unexpected emergencies. Life happens. Due dates, pay dates, they don't line up. Let's eliminate that late fee by having access to your pay early. That's it. You've earned it. You just don't have to wait till payday. Or they have that emergency. They're driving, flat tire, they can't get to work. Well, they don't have $500 set aside, right? Statistics say employees or the Americans don't have $500 set aside for an unexpected emergency. Well, now they can access that pay, so they don't have to go to a payday lender. They don't have to ask for a loan. They don't have to even take out a 401k loan. All those things that are probably negatively impacting them. And we then plug that hole so they can actually get to work and remove that financial stress. But the real key is our health platform to go, let's help you build credit. Let's start putting a savings account where you set aside money so you don't have to go through that. Let's come up with financial coaching that you might need so you can learn more. Or let's even help you file your taxes for free right now during tax season so you get your refund check immediately and you don't have to use earned wage access. That's the key of RAIN, is we're actually trying to prevent them from using earned wage access once we help build them into our platform.
Yeah, it's the teach someone how to fish, right? So, and I think that's the biggest misconception. Let's sit there for a minute on that concept of overuse, right? Because I think that's really the employer's biggest concern, is that, man, am I going to dig them further in? Because if everything's tied to productivity of an employee, and not just them, but the family, right? So now you got missed days work, you've got disengagement, all these other things. So let's just sit on the overuse and talk to that piece, so that we just get a little bit more education around how it's really not something that's overuse. It really is about
You're spot on.
that.
Being in the industry for over 5 years, responsible usage is usually the biggest topic and the biggest reasons people hesitate to offer it to their employees. Now, again, I mentioned employees are going through this. They're gonna go to some of those worst case scenarios. However, what RAIN does, and I can't speak for everybody in the industry, but at least what RAIN does, we put a 50% guardrail already so employees don't actually access everything that they've earned. We set it up so they still have a paycheck on payday, because the paydays are very important still. So we cap it at 50%, and honestly, we can still customize it even more if an employer wanted that, but we do that 50% because we believe in that responsible usage. Again, one of the reasons I joined RAIN and left a previous company in the industry, because that wasn't the case there, and everybody does it differently. So I'm really proud that RAIN does that, because we align with employers to go, we agree. Let's cap it at 50% so people don't abuse it. They have access for something so that way they can eliminate those predatory places. And let's teach them, like you said, so they can actually get better and use this less, but they'll use other RAIN products, not having to go, hey, take out money just because they don't have it set aside already.
Sure. Is there, and we don't have to use names if we're under NDA, but is there an example that you can point to with a client that you worked with that their biggest concern was that, and you were able to point them to a place where outcomes were evident relative to the overall metrics and KPIs that they're looking at around engagement, turnover, et cetera? Because
I've been in the industry, a lot of times when I'm having conversations with employers like that, I'm leading with that. I actually am sharing in advance, like, I know what you're thinking, right? And it's funny because a lot of organizations do have this paternal instinct when it comes to their employees still, when it comes to this. However, knowing that, I lead with that, we actually have the responsible usage taken care of, so they don't have to worry. Explain how it's done, making sure they see it. We have a lot of data points. We have user data. We have our, actual responsible usage statistics of how we're decreasing 401k loans, how we're decreasing overdraft fees, and really helping employees. But yeah, I mean, if it's every employer we're talking to, because it's not something that we shy away from, because we do it the right way. Now, again, in my previous employer, we actually allowed them to have 100% of their net. So that was a different conversation, where when we were talking about responsible usage, we were telling them, like, yeah, look at the data. It's not, bad, because they don't use it more than 1.5 times per week. But there was no safeguard there. So, it could happen that some people would actually max it out. Ours at RAIN, it's not like that, so I feel very comfortable when I'm having those conversations. The biggest misconception is that people don't know this, and we need to have those conversations with employers so they feel better about earned wage access as a plug for that financial health platform.
Well, you need to actually be in the room, and that's the biggest challenge, because what we see is a lot of these employers, they're interested in financial benefits, but sometimes when you get earned wage access right away, it's, no, that's not what I need. I need financial advice. I need better financial outcomes with other benefits. I'm not looking for loans, right?
Absolutely.
So where I think part of that piece really comes around, it is a financial benefit that is advisory, that is impactful, that is a solution, right? So, and when we talk about solution, CFOs, let's get to CFOs, because CFOs, everything's tied to the ROI and the outcomes. Maybe we can talk about that, because the CFOs and the CHROs and the VPs of total rewards, they're all having conversations around the water cooler on being able to impact the financial health. So how do you talk to a CFO about the ROI, that the employees and the overall outcomes of the organization are going to feel?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it comes back to still what that employer, that organization is struggling with. There are some companies, recruiting is not an issue. Their name is already giving them tons of applicants. Maybe it's the retention front. Maybe it's digitizing pay. Maybe it's giving them the opportunity to be better with their time clock compliance. There's so many different downstream impacts. Maybe it is just financial benefit and that they want to offer and create increased adoption so that employees are happier at work. So you have to understand what that CFO cares about. And you're right, it does come back to the ROI and the numbers, but every organization is going to be a little bit different. Yeah. But the way we approach it is, once we learn what that organization is actually truly trying to measure and impact, we have the data behind the scenes to be able to show that. We can show, hey, your employees actually are better retained because they're using this versus your employees that aren't. We can see it based on start dates and end dates at that company because we have the data that's going back, flowing through payroll and timekeeping. We also can see, hey, when we do a job posting that says, hey, get paid to work today, get paid today, powered by Rain, and one that doesn't, you can see you get double the amount of applicants. So if they're actually trying to track that, we go back to the ROI and what they're looking for. So a lot of times we'll take these assumed costs, we'll ask those questions, and we'll put together an ROI calculator to really show a CFO, this is the actual turnover savings you would have that you told us that you were trying to eliminate or trying to reduce, etc. But the biggest reason Rain makes an impact for the CFO or anybody in the C-suite is the adoption, right? If you don't have adoption of the benefit, none of those other things are gonna happen. Even again, in my previous company, the adoption was low. And what I learned at Rain once I joined is highest adoption in the industry. I was actually digging in to go, why is that? Why is it that Rain's adoption is significantly better than everybody else in the industry? And I read the case studies. We did the interviews with the employers. So it's not just we're saying it, we're actually talking to the employers that are using it. The adoption is higher because of the simplicity Rain does in order to allow employees to use it. We are minimal data, so there's no social security, no date of birth. No employee has to worry about information, no employer has to worry about information. We're just like Venmo. It's so easy to access. It's a simple app, and employees just love using it. We do a lot with customer service and a lot with the communication with an employer. So we help them really launch the benefit, because there's no reason to launch a benefit if nobody's gonna use it.
Yeah.
But then we show the adoption, and now we could get back and actually show the ROI. We do QBRs, so we could show every employer, here's what you saved this past quarter based on the results you're looking for. Here's the adoption, here's the impacts. And we just really get down to the actual numbers that make sense for them. But it's the statistics that are always there. When you use earned wage access or any of our financial health, you're having employees that not only more adopt, they're retaining longer, they're picking up more shifts. Like a CFO might not realize, some of those employees are calling out. Absenteeism is big.
Yeah.
The reason they're calling out, again, we've done our research, they actually call out at a normal job because their paycheck is gonna be a while, 2 weeks to get it. They'll go work at DoorDash, they'll go work at Uber, they get paid that day. They needed the money immediately because of the financial stress, and they leave work to go do that. And the CFO might not know your employee is actually working just somewhere else, but we could prevent that if they had actually accessed that money that day. They stay with you and work versus the call out, which will impact everything else with your organization, right? Overtime pay. Yeah. Now, if it's a hospital system, patient experience or customer experience in a hospitality, we are trying to prevent that by making sure employees stay with you and work with you by offering this. So we show those data points and those downstream impacts. So the CFO, so if it's before they actually do it with us, we'll show some of those assumed numbers. But once they're actually using our service, we're constantly showing them the results they're getting.
Well, that's awesome. Those are the numbers the CFOs care about. But what I want to now hit on is what you talked about with the adoption and the engagement, which starts with the communication, and that is usually the breakdown of 95% of the benefits,
Yep.
right? Like they're out there and so many of them are incentivized not to be used, right? So you have a benefit. I don't want to talk about different types of benefits. We
Yep.
all know what they are, where they're de-incentivized from being used. So what is Rain doing different with the communication? Say I'm that VP of Total Rewards.
Yep.
I say yes. What are the first steps necessary in order to make sure that that communication is going to get me to the engagement and adoption?
Yep. So we usually say about 45 days adoption. The technical configuration is actually really easy because we plug into people's payroll and timekeeping system. We already have those integrations based on all the different employers we work with and all the partners we have. So that's not even an issue. That literally is the fast part of it. Like, plug it into that API or, just configure your files like this and we have access to the minimal data we require. The biggest part of that 45 days is that communication with marketing. We work with teams. So every company has different organization. They might have different regional leaders of stores, retail, or a hospital that has people that are taking care of like the portal and the LMS and things like the employees. What we do is we support them with however they communicate, plus we share a lot more on what we can do to help drive the communication engagement. Examples like break room posters, postcards for tabletops, or even just like emails. And a lot of times we can even push through their HRIS system, the comms, like, hey, this is coming. We do like a teaser in advance. Then we do several weeks where we're just constantly communicating, maybe doing some launch parties or prizes and things like that. And then when it actually officially launches, not only they get the communication, our team is doing that and all the support. People are gonna have like, wait, I don't know how to use this app. We provide that support. So we really make it where we take it off of that employer and let us run with it as long as they're willing to work side by side with us. There's companies that love the low lift. There's companies that'll say, this is how they do benefits and they want to do it this way, and we'll plug into theirs, but we'll still provide additional support. So that way, to your point, the better we communicate, more engagement and adoption is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we do it at no cost for anybody.
That's a good thing. Continual use, talk about that. Because when you look at earned wage access, and I know there's all kinds of data out there too, with continual usage of the application,
Yep.
getting to the abuse. Can you talk about statistics of where you differentiate with continual use and where that butts up to your 50% threshold,
Yep.
as set against those who are only using it as a one-time solution? Because there's all kinds of information around one-time use being a safeguard, but
Yep.
someone who has a habitual use, that's where we've got to take a look at, are they getting into overuse? So, and that's really acute data. I don't know if you can talk to that.
Yeah, so the 50% guardrail helps us big time because again, no one's taking out all their money right at the end of the paycheck. They still have half their paycheck there if they took out as much as they wanted to. But the nice thing about continual use, even if someone wanted to use it every day, they can do a next day transfer at no cost. So
Really?
that changes it where, hey, if someone's using it every day, but they're actually paying nothing for that,
Yeah.
why not? It's their pay, right? They've earned it, they can take it out. It's actually what the modern way of paying is starting to become with the gig economy,
Yep.
right? They're getting paid, Uber, DoorDash, wherever.
Yeah.
Instacart, then you got TaskRabbit. There's so many companies out there that are doing this now. So the idea is like, as an organization, you can really digitize and modernize your pay because we're not gonna probably change from bi-weekly to weekly or weekly to daily. Maybe one day, but right now that's not, and it's actually very costly for an organization to do that with their payroll provider. Again, coming from the payroll background, I know it's based on payroll runs and things like that. So one, if an employee is using it, but they actually request next day transfer every day, they can have their pay, half of it still, and does not pay a single dime. So I don't see any reason someone should be upset if someone did that. Now, if they did have that emergency and it's like an ATM, $3.99, they're taking it out and they're like, I need this money now. We're hoping they use it for those emergencies, but it's like you and I. How often are you going to your ATM and just using it daily? Like, even when we go to an ATM, we typically go, let me take it one time because I don't want to hit this cost multiple times, right? We've done that when we needed cash things, probably in the wrong scenarios, like when I'm at the casino or something like that. But in general, I'm just saying, like, there are times my barbershop does not take card. I have to get cash. Well, when I do that, I'm either going to my bank, so it's completely free. So same thing, similar to like that next day mindset, or oh, I have to go to the local ATM, but let me actually not just pull out $20 for there or whatever the amount. Let me pull out 100 because I probably will need it for some other things and I don't want to absorb that cost multiple times. It's the same way our employees are thinking because, hey, if you need that instant, you pay it, but take it out. And we see the average that they take out is between $80 to $90. So it tells us like, well, they're not taking out all their money. They made all this money. They take it out usually for an instant. And then they have the next day option always for free. And that's really what we feel good about. It's like, never does someone have to be forced to use it. We don't tell them you have to go put it on this debit card or pay card or anything like that. It's completely agnostic, so they get to put it in their bank account and they can avoid late fees for all those bills. Because we all know bills aren't the same days as paydays.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have a bill due today, but it's not payday. Well, now they have the flexibility of pay and the tool that lets them manage their money in a better way. But again, those are just some of the statistics. One of the great things we do is we have employees that could actually use it and plug in like what they're using it for. It's a completely optional survey, but we give it to the user as a way for them to track, right? Like we want to teach them, like you said. So now how many times did you have to use this in the month for gas versus utilities versus groceries? Now you can start figuring out like, wait, maybe I need to get better in my gas. I'm not budgeting it right, and I should like take out the gas money at a certain time versus I'm coming in a certain time of the pay period that I'm always using it for gas. But for the employer, we give a holistic data go, out of all your employees, 60% are using it for gas. And then I've seen employers that go, we should actually create a new gas incentive and spiff to help drive motivation and culture. And they rolled out gas cards and like other transportation benefits to help them. Like this is the how we bring it all together to help that user, but also help the organization. But to your point, right, we want to make sure it's responsible usage, and it's basically getting in there and allowing a free option, allowing them to have 50% only, and then allowing them to actually get better and learn the ways to manage their money so they're not abusing it at all.
Yeah, and I think the dashboard that you're talking about, this falls back into financial advisory.
Yep.
Because the misconceptions are, it's just a loan.
Yeah.
But underneath all of it, if I get to see what my behaviors are, now we're getting into financial advice, right?
Yep.
This is where you're spending your money, and as an employer, you can incentivize a set against those things that you might see aggregately your employees are, engaging around. So,
absolutely.
So that's awesome. So if you're going in, and again, if I was that officer, let's look at the other side of it now. What pitfalls, challenges do you see the employers making initially when they're considering, earned wage access or any kind of, financial well-being? What are the most pitfalls that you see when you're having that initial conversation before you get to the step of someone becoming a client?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges or pitfalls from the employer perspective. One, this is a benefit that really impacts a lot of stakeholders when you're rolling it out and implementing, et cetera. So we might be talking to an HR benefits person, but then there's a payroll person that has their own perception of it or perspective, or like you mentioned, the CFO might feel this way, but the CHRO might feel this way. And it does impact a lot of people. COOs are very involved, especially in retail or places where there's multiple stores and distribution centers, warehouses. So like, there might be someone that says, I love this for my employees. And then there might be a completely different group of people in payroll and stuff that says, I don't want single employees touching this. So I think there is that challenge that it's an organizational, I don't even know what to call it, but like it's so many people involved that, it's harder to make that decision because you have a lot of opinions. So that's one for sure. I think a lot of people automatically assume that this implementation is like some HRIS payroll implementation. I mean, we've heard it, right? Payroll implementation for these organizations could take a year, right? They have to go training, they have to go through so much.
Compliance.
And we're not like that, but because we're tagged to ADPs of the world or SAP or Workday, and we're built into all these things, people just assume we're that same type of implementation, so they don't want to take it on. When in fact, we can configure this with the current payroll system, and if you're changing it, just switch it over literally like this, and you can like send out a benefit to your employees sooner than later that can make direct impact not only for their financial health, but for the companies with so many downstream impacts. So that integration and implementation, just perception is probably a pitfall as well. I think those would be like the two big things. Just again, the organizational challenge with so many people involved, the implementation side. I think employers, again, just don't know. So like have the conversations, but to be honest, if there are bad players in the market or just different types of models, that could also turn people off, right? Like they've heard about one, so they automatically assume that, but they didn't get a chance to look at Rain's financial health platform. Because we're talking about EWA, but like we have rent assist. Like employees have rent, which is their biggest thing, but what if we were able to spread that out for them and help them? We have secured credit cards, so we could actually help build their credit cards based on their earned wages as collateral. They don't have to do a single thing. We have all the infrastructure, but all we're doing is improving their credit score every time they use that secured card that they want to be a part of. Or, like I mentioned, we have financial coaching. A lot of these 401k companies also have it, but maybe they're not as easy to use. Like I have Fidelity, but like I go to the Fidelity website and I'm confused. It's like, it has so many things in there. I don't know if you've ever looked at those sites, and it's like, where do I actually go to get some help? But like our app makes it so simple that just connect with the financial advisor and talk to them and get your assistance and whatever you need, whatever questions. Like, so we're basically providing so much, but people don't know. So I think another pitfall is just, again, until they really know what Rain could provide and not just automatically assume, that always makes it a challenge.
Well, talk to me a little bit, because I don't think people know about the financial coaching aspect of it. So hit that part of the app and maybe talk about use case there.
Yeah.
Most people I know because when I'm talking to them about your space, they just hear Rain, or if they know the brand, or if they just think earned wage access, again, just back to the loan. Tell me about what you're doing with the financial coaching.
Yeah, well, honestly, right now we just have one-on-one financial coaching available. And they're like basically in-house certified financial coaches that are in our user care team. So that way, if someone really needed help, we could actually provide that help with them. What we're doing, which is coming out later this year, is an AI financial coaching tool. And the idea, there's a lot of companies that already do it, but what we want to do is we want to build it into this platform. So when people are engaging with their pay, right? Pay is so important to people, but now they can see their pay and what they're earning. And they can also see where it's spending, because we connect to their banks through Plod if they choose. And then now they see their spending analytics. And then if they have actual questions on like, what could I do to save some money? Like, we're creating an AI financial coach within that. Although right now they do have one-on-one coaching for the live person if they want. But we want to take it to the next level. We want to be able to help them. So that's kind of what we're going, is, again, turning this app into a platform where, yes, there are various cards they can use if they want. So we're building this financial platform where they'll have cards. If they want one of our cards, that's great. If they don't, they don't have to. Like, nothing is mandated for an employee. Then we're gonna have the rent assist in there. We're gonna have the ability to access their pay early if they need it, or next day for completely free. But we're gonna have all these little tabs to help them grow also. Hey, have a set aside account where you're just putting money aside, whether it's for vacation and stuff. So I think the idea is this entire platform built in with coaching and ways to get better will be amazing for employees. And it's truly a financial health platform. And then we can show the data that it really works for users as well as for the employers. But again, people aren't aware of it. So in the app, when they have that spending analysis, it's funny because my friends and I, we were talking, it's very much like we start looking at our accounts and we realize, oh my goodness, I'm spending way too much money on DoorDash. Like, I haven't realized how much until you actually put it in front of you. Yeah. And what we do is we help employees actually see that they might have not seen it without that app. And now they start getting better and like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I don't need to eat out more, or I'm spending too much money on this, or am I actually saving every pay period like I had suggested I would? Now we give them all those tools so they could do it all in one place. And that's the idea, is like Rain is that app, so that way they don't have to go anywhere else. They can do all those things right there.
Yeah, well, it's full financial well-being. That's really what Rain is growing into. And the financial well-being, and let's hit on this, because I know, I don't know, when was it, 6 weeks or 2 months ago when we started talking about doing this, we talked about how that ties into emotional health.
Yes.
Because right now, that's a huge challenge with everything going on in the world, with the cultural challenges, all the AI implementations and the digital transformation and the family challenges. It's overwhelming. That's financial affects emotional.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about the kind of conversations you're having with employers with the work that Rain is doing, impacting the emotional health of these employees?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, being in the industry so long, I've seen it over time. I'm a big fan of like the mental health like movement, right? Like, one, our EAPs now typically have that, so it's great. We get more mental health days and people are doing the right things. But I think it's almost in conjunction with financial wellness, because I've read a lot of statistics from Morgan Stanley and Forbes where financial stress actually impacts a lot of that emotional well-being. And a lot of times it's just those articles that say that, and we're like diving into it again, going back to the user and understanding why do you need a mental health day? Well, it might be, and there are probably a lot of other reasons, but a lot of it times it is, you know what, I'm worried about my bills. I'm worried about paying my mortgage this month, right? And we hear those things and we see it. And what we've learned is like when those things are being thought about, it actually impacts something called presenteeism. Employees aren't being as productive because they're thinking about that. So a lot of times we tie it to emotional health, and it is, but it is probably the cause is something that's related with finances. Student loans are coming back. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Or, you know, an overdraft. Imagine when an overdraft happens. Like employee uses that thing, goes into overdraft. And again, I'll be very vulnerable. Like this has happened to me before, right? Out of college, I've done a payday lender. I've had overdraft.
I think it's happened to all of us. Are
right?
you kidding?
Yeah. But overdraft fee, and it's like, I kept swiping, but not realizing until later when I saw it. And because I had 3, 4, 5 charges, this is like now a huge negative amount I'm in, not just $35.
Yep.
And that type of stress like creates that emotional issues that people go through. Like if you're going to work and you know you have nothing in your bank account and maybe you have somebody to provide for a child's medicine or something, like this is why people are having, I need to take a day off. I need mental health days. I need that. Now, there's other stuff. I don't want to take away from those things. I have kids, I have daughters. I know the trauma sometimes that they go through or the things that they at least tell me and I deal with. But I think in the real world, people that are working are getting impacted by finances, and it turns into emotional well-being that impact their day-to-day at work, could cause them to call out, could cause them to be very unproductive in the actual workforce, or could cause them to quit and leave the work. And we don't want these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we've covered a lot when you're talking about the holistic financial wellness that you're doing, why this is important to employers. Think of me as that Total Rewards or CHRO who's looking at this. What is something, 1 or 2 steps strategically I could make over the next 90 days to reduce the stress for my employees?
Yeah, I actually would say, check with your employees, like really gauge them, understand what they're going through. I think there's a lot of CHROs that do care about their people, and I'm hearing that in a lot of conversations, but like just, everybody's gonna say, I need more pay. But right in the engagement surveys, pulse surveys, what's your biggest issue? Oh, I don't get paid enough. Everybody's gonna say that, but we can't all solve for that. But possibly what they're really saying is they actually just need their pay faster, right? Everyone's gonna want a bonus, but maybe if we just giving them the access to their pay and having all these tools might help them where they're not just thinking about more pay, but being able to take care of the things that probably are making them say, I need more pay. Yeah. That's one thing. I think the other thing is check with your payroll providers and the companies that you already work with on who would they recommend? I think that's a great thing. I mean, I'm working a lot with the partners and building the Reigns brand within those payroll companies. And I think that's a trusted source that CHROs should check in with and go, who do you already have that you would partner with, etc. And I also say that because I'm very confident that those lot of partners will tell you Rain is a great option. But even if they were saying, yes, we have, because we're in the marketplace, if they say Rain's a good option, this company's a good option, this company, they're all in our marketplace. Yeah. And that CHRO comes and talks to all 3 of us, I'm very confident that our platform is the best one out there. Yeah. So that's why I'm go that route, because then at least that CHRO, payroll leader, VP will feel good about knowing that their current provider is actually recommending one of those.
Awesome. And
then I think the other thing is, do the due diligence and research or reach out, inquire about Rain and find out how this financial health platform is different in the space and how it could really impact all those business impacts and those users. Because it's both sides. We can help the business, but I don't want to just think about that. I'm thinking about that financial stress that everybody's dealing with. So let's help both sides and just let's have that conversation.
Okay. Anything I didn't cover that I should have in this time, talking about financial health, Rain, emotional well-being, whatever it may be?
No, I think, listen, I'm very passionate about it, so I know I'm all excited and stuff. It's not just about Rain, it's about the industry. So if they provide this solution with even a different provider in the industry, I'm actually happy about it. I'm happy that they provide something so employees have it in order to really build this industry and really make a difference when it comes to how people are getting paid. Because if you really look at it, pay has not changed for so many years. 401k started in 79, I think. And when 401ks first started, it wasn't as popular. It was actually just a tax code that someone was using, and then they figured out this retirement benefit thing. And then, probably 90s, 2000s, it started becoming where big companies have it. In 2015 to 2017, I was actually selling 401ks to small businesses because small businesses didn't provide it, only the big companies. I personally, as an employee, would only go to work at a company that has a 401k. It was important to me to set aside money for the future.
Right.
Well, the way nowadays looks like almost every company should have a 401k, and every employee somewhere is thinking about their 401k. We talk about it all the time. I believe earned wage access, on-demand pay, and this financial health concept will become an everyday thing down the road. And that's why I'm really passionate about it, because right now it's just still new for a lot of people, even though it's been 7-8 years. But I believe down the road will be just like the 401k, where people are going to companies that are going to be like, wait, what? You don't have earned wage access and on-demand pay and this financial health platform? I don't know if I would work here.
Yeah.
That's the mentality I have, and I believe that's truly going to happen.
That's awesome. And as we look down the road, AI is very cool with what you're going to be doing very shortly.
Absolutely.
So I'm really looking forward to that addition.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Shohan. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.